Welcome back to Tech with Adil MC, guys. Today, I'll demonstrate how easy it is to build your own PC and some tips and tricks to consider. So for all the noobs, I'll give some basic needed background information. Firstly, the bare minimum components you need include PC case with fans, central processing unit also known as CPU, graphics card also known as GPU, power supply also known as PSU, CPU cooler, memory also known as RAM, internal storage which you can consider as HDD or SSD. There's a lot more to it, and I will be making other videos on PC systems since there's a lot to cover. But assuming you already bought your components and are now looking to put them together, then this video is for you. Alright, so let's jump right into it. So we'll break this into two steps. First, put together the motherboard, then the motherboard gets installed in the PC case along with the rest of the components. First, we'll install the RAM, and you do this by locating the RAM slots. Generally, each motherboard comes with specifics on how to install the RAM, but in my case I have the diagram shown on the screen. RAM is super easy to install. Just open the locking clips and insert the RAM, and sometimes it takes a bit of force to put them in, so don't be worried about that. Don't apply too much pressure as you can risk breaking the motherboard. Another thing to keep in mind is that RAM can be plugged in any way, so pay attention to which way the notch is facing. Next, let's install the storage. In my case, I'm installing an M.2 SSD, which is super easy. First, remove the heatsink, then install the M.2 SSD and make sure to match the connection. Finally, reinstall the heatsink and you're ready to move on. In my motherboard, the heatsink has two separate screws and the M.2 has one connection and one screw. Again, refer to your motherboard's manual to see how this is done. Next, I'll install the CPU, and this is an LGA 1700 Intel CPU socket. Depending on your motherboard and the type of CPU socket, this varies, so make sure to refer to the motherboard's manual. In my case, lift the silver rod holding down the CPU cover and then open the CPU cover. Drop the CPU in and make sure to be careful here. Do not touch the CPU on the underside and do not touch the CPU socket. The CPU should fit in smoothly. Next, close the CPU cover, and as you close the silver rod, the black cover should pop off on its own. It is a pretty tight fit, so don't be scared to use some force to close the silver rod. Let's install the CPU cooler now. Install the CPU cooler bracket, and again, refer to your CPU cooler and motherboard's manual as it varies but is similar overall. Apply a small bead of CPU thermal paste and install the CPU cooler on top of the CPU. As the weight of the CPU cooler goes onto the bead, the thermal paste will spread itself over the CPU. Make sure to not put too much as it can drop on the motherboard. Screw in the CPU cooler in a star pattern to ensure it evenly tightens. Let's move to the PC case. Remove the side panels, remove the wires in the PC case. My case came with the power supply, so I don't need to worry about unboxing that and installing it as it's already pre-installed. I'll be replacing the stock CPU fans with these Be Quiet fans in the front, and moving the stock fans to the back and top as exhaust fans. Let's install the motherboard. It's as easy as placing it on the case, and refer to the manual to see how it's supposed to be oriented. Usually the power supply is on the bottom, so naturally the motherboard will be on top. Screw in the motherboard and make sure there is no play. Remove the case's top cover and install the stock PC case fan there as exhaust. The fans usually have arrows representing the direction of flow. So intake, you want the arrow pointing in, and exhaust, you want the arrow pointing out. Let's plug in the case header wires, which connect the case's LEDs and power button. Refer to the manual once again to make sure you wire it correctly as it varies. I have my motherboard's diagram as shown. Next, let's install the new Be Quiet fans for intake. Time to install the GPU. It has a similar connection style as RAM, except it's a much bigger component overall, so you need extra mount locations to make sure it doesn't move. Remove the case's rear removable brackets and then mount your GPU in. Then fill the gap with the remaining removable brackets by installing them back in. Plug your GPU connections in, and for NVIDIA this is usually the same wires. Plug the top fans connections in. Next, I'll pull all the wires in and get them routed and cleaned up on the backside. I don't show the power supply cables being run, but you run the power cables from the PSU to the GPU and motherboard. The diagrams can be seen in the motherboard, PSU, and GPU manuals if needed. Here I install the cables into the PSU, and usually it's easier to connect them before installing the PSU as there's limited space inside. I definitely struggled here for a bit off camera. Connect the motherboard and CPU power supply. Connect the USB port connections. Alright, now install your HDMI cable and power cables. Install the Wi-Fi antenna. And voila! The PC is built. The next step is to try to turn it on and see if it posts. If it doesn't post, your motherboard will blink its LEDs in a specific way depending on what you bought. But generally, if it's not posting, meaning not turning on, you need to double check all your wire connections and make sure all your components are seated properly. In my first try, it did not actually post, and this was due to the RAM not properly being clipped in. So once I fixed that, everything ran perfectly. Finally, you can install your choice of operating system and enjoy your new PC. I hope you guys learned something from my video, and I hope it was easy to follow. I try to put in loads of information in a quick video, and we'll be doing multiple videos on the PC build process, as I know this is kind of complicated. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to like and subscribe for future content.